T. Roy Aikman back on the program. How are you, Troy?
How are you, Dan?
I'm good. I'm good. I want to start with a quote. I want you to hear what Josh Rosen had to say yesterday. Tell me what you make of this. If you're a GM and you hear this, I want to know what you would think. So here's Josh Rosen on the NFL Network with Andrew Siciliano.
I've always been the number 2 guy. I mean, coming out of high school, Ricky Town was the dude. He was going to SC. I was going to UCLA. He was number 1 in the country. I was number 2, and he was going to bring USC back to the promised land. Blake Barnett, after Ricky kind of faded away a little bit, Blake Barnett was the Elite 11 MVP. He was the dude that was going to go to Bama, win a couple championships, and call it quits, go to the league as a first overall pick. You don't really hear about him too much. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, these dudes that are these exotic, cool, like flashy quarterbacks. That number 1 pick, all this stuff, and I'm number 2. And you know what? I'm going to sit here, and in a couple of years, when all is said and done, I'm confident that I'll still be standing.
What do you think of that?
Well, what I take from it, Dan, is a guy who knows he's not going to be the number 1 overall pick. But knowing Josh, I've known him since he got to UCLA. He's a very confident guy, as you probably know. He's extremely intelligent, and I think he's as competitive a guy as there is. Excuse me, that's in this draft as well. And so I think basically what he's saying is he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Doesn't like that he's not received probably more attention than he has going into this draft, or some of the questions about him. And that when it's all said and done, he'll prove himself to be the number 1 guy.
If I said arm strength or accuracy, which one's more important?
No doubt in my mind, accuracy. I would place that. You could list any
Okay.
quality next to accuracy, and I'd go with accuracy, because you can be a great leader, you can be tough, your teammates can love you, you can be smart, whatever. If you can't put the ball where it needs to be, then none of that other stuff matters.
Yeah, and that's what I brought up about 15 minutes ago. A scout said, look, Josh Allen can throw it through a wall, whereas Baker Mayfield could throw it at a brick in the wall, and that's what you want. I'd much rather have accuracy than arm strength there.
Well, I would too. I put a real premium on that, and that is the concern of mine of Josh Allen's and Lamar Jackson's. Those two guys, and because I think ultimately you have to be able to put the ball where you want to put it. And as an offensive coordinator, when you go into a game and you've game planned a certain look to try to take advantage of a shot down the field, and then when it finally presents itself, you've got to have the confidence that the quarterback's going to be able to deliver and put the ball where it needs to be. And this is a game of third downs, and we've all seen those quarterbacks who are erratic throwing the football, and you just kind of hold your breath on every snap as to whether or not they're going to be able to hit the open target. So I do understand the infatuation with Josh Allen. He's a terrific talent. He's a bit of a project, if you will. I think he's got to have some time to develop, but I think he'll do that. I think he's a great kid. The thing about it, Dan, is all of these quarterbacks, they have things that you can shoot holes through. And I was talking to a general manager recently, and a former general manager, and he said that, in his opinion, if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, there can't be any minuses. When you go through the ledger, everything has to be a positive, and yet with these guys, there are minuses with each and every one of them, some less than others, and it then causes you to stop and think, are any of these guys actually franchise quarterbacks? And we'll know that in time, but as we know, when you don't have a quarterback, they all look like franchise quarterbacks when they're coming out, and I think to a certain extent we're overvaluing, like we do every year.
Yeah.
I do believe that some of these quarterbacks are being overvalued.
But isn't it amazing, though, that I think the consensus is the best player in the draft is not going to be taken number 1 in Saquon Barkley?
Right.
Right? Why?
Well, because he plays running back and he's not a quarterback. It's just the premium on what this. I think it's always been important to have a quarterback to win at the level that you want to win. But as you know, more now, the game's more in the quarterback's hands today than it's ever been. And we've seen there just has been less importance, I guess, if you will, on the running back position. I'm a huge fan of Saquon Barkley's, and I agree with that statement. I think he's the best player in the draft. He's still going to go very high, but not where he should go compared to the talent that he has relative to everyone else.
If you ran the Browns, you would do what tomorrow night?
I would take Sam Darnold, and then I would hope Saquon Barkley fell to number 4. And I think there's a good chance that would happen. And I think that the Browns, first of all, they have to hit, they have to hit on 1 and 4, but they have to hit on 1 if they're taking a quarterback. There's a lot of pressure because there's not a John Elway in this draft. And so I think the safest pick, and the safest pick doesn't always mean the right pick, but I think if you look at the guy who checks the most boxes, it's Sam Darnold. I would go with him. I think there's a good chance Barkley falls to 4. I would pick him up. And I say that because I'm a guy, even though we weren't in the same draft, I went in 88, Emmett came in 80, or I went in 89, Emmett came in 1990. And I know what that meant to me as a young quarterback. So I think if they were able to hit on both those guys, at 1 and 4 in the same draft, they've got something that they could build on for a long, long time.
If the Cowboys don't draft Emmitt Smith, are you in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm wondering if Emmett's in the Hall of Fame.
There you go. There you go. Now you're in midseason form. I love that.
There
All right.
you go.
If you ran the Giants, Troy, what would you do?
Here's what I would do, and I think it's what Dave Gettleman will do. Is if you believe that whoever is left on the board, knowing that the Browns are going to take a quarterback, if you believe anyone who's left is a franchise quarterback, I think you have to take that guy. And if they don't take a quarterback, then it's my belief that Dave Gettleman doesn't believe that there's a franchise quarterback on the board, or maybe there wasn't at all. And then, this is a league. The difference makers in this league are quarterbacks and pass rushers. I think then you go and you pick up Bradley Chubb, unless you're able to make a move and slide down and maybe get a player you want, and that could happen. That could happen with some of these teams that are a team like Buffalo, for instance, that has some capital to be able to try to move up and take a quarterback, because I think they're going to try to make a play at some point.
This didn't happen to you, I don't think, in Dallas, but when you see them drafting your successor, if you're the Saints, if you're the Steelers, if you're the Chargers, if you're the Patriots, how does this affect those quarterbacks? If they go first round and draft somebody's successor here, is that just part of, hey, that's business and you know that? Or
I think for everyone else in the organization, I understand it. I think in some ways Jimmy Johnson drafted my successor in the same year I was picked in '89 when he drafted Steve Walsh in the supplemental right after I had just been chosen number 1. So I think I understand it as an organization when you say, hey, we have to have a succession plan, and we're in a position now to do that. But we saw it in Denver with John Elway when they drafted Tommy Maddox with the first pick. That was before Elway had even won his first Super Bowl. I mean, he still had a lot of years left, and saw it, of course, in Green Bay. Brett Favre did not like it. No one would like it, because when you feel like you still have some years left, and yet they draft a guy who they don't draft a guy in the first round to sit on the bench for long, that your days are maybe even more numbered than you originally thought. It's not a good feeling. I think it creates some tension, and I think Favre and Rodgers would be the first to tell you that that's what happened in Green Bay.
Troy Aikman, live coverage, round 1 NFL draft, alongside Rich Eisen from the NFL Network, Mike Mayock, Daniel Jeremiah, and the Stanford head football coach David Shaw, simulcast on Fox and the NFL Network starting tomorrow night. Last time you picked up a football and threw it?
Well, actually, I take that back. I was on spring break with my kids in the Cayman Islands, and one of the kids that I happened to run into on the beach wanted me to throw him one as he dove out into the ocean. I was a little nervous about it. It had been quite a while. That's why I paused to think when I last picked one up. Probably had been a good 4 years prior to that, and you talk about accuracy. I've always been able to put the ball where I wanted to. Fortunately, with a beach watching, I was able to throw a perfect ball to this kid. But, I'm not one who gets out and throws the ball around. If I was a head coach, I would not be Jim Harbaugh or Jason Garrett or Pete Carroll throwing the ball around, in pregame warm-ups. And I do appearances with Staubach quite often, and I don't think Staubach's ever walked by a football that he didn't pick up and throw. And I'm not that guy.
So you did hit the ocean, because sometimes they'll say,
I hit the kid in the hand.
Okay.
The kid The kid wanted to be dramatic. He wanted to lay out and catch it as he was going into the ocean. No, I can't hit water falling out of a boat. I mean, that was not a problem.
I would love if you were just like, this is a money proposition too, Troy. You just stand on the beach, like Sandals hires you, and then you're just on the beach. Cowboy fans, a cowboy junket, and then they get one throw from Troy Aikman. You'd be richer than you are.
I don't know how long this broadcasting gig's going to last, but when it does, you might catch me somewhere on the beach throwing football.
We would walk by and you'd be like 70 and go, "Oh God, what happened to Troy Aikman? Look at that beer belly on Troy Aikman. What happened? Oh, he's got his Super Bowl rings on though, and his jersey.
I'd be wearing all three of them.
That's
right.
So sad. Hey, have fun tomorrow night. Always great to catch up with you, Troy. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, Dan.
All right, buddy. That's Troy Aikman, Cowboys Hall of Famer.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.